All right, as promised at the beginning of the podcast, we're going to break down this 10 games, and Big T is joining us. How you doing, Tony?
I'm doing good, man. I just got the tutorial how to use this iMovie on the Mac from the man and the myth, the legend, Stevie. So I'm looking forward to doing some football videos tomorrow.
Yeah, man, I got one more video to shoot myself. I have Pittsburgh, so I'm excited to do that. It's going to be one more day for me because I'm about 70%. I don't think I would start today if it was baseball, but I'm starting on the podcast today. That's for sure.
What about if it was like a playoff start? You'd be out there for that, wouldn't you?
I would be puking on the field to play in a playoff game. When you're in the playoffs, man, you never know when those are going to come around. You got to play, right?
Oh, absolutely. The Jordan sick game, man. Sometimes you're at your best when you're sick. I mean, you lock in, you get focused, out there dealing.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to start here in Baltimore where Boston's visiting. David Price against Dylan Bundy. Man, Dylan Bundy has been a talented young kid, and we look at his stats, and the kid was drafted in the first round. He was drafted as a top prospect. Injury, of course, early in his career, but Dylan Bundy here against the Red Sox team that just continues to hit. Like, we can't take him here in this spot, can we?
I'm going to have a hard time taking a right-handed pitcher like Bundy. I mean, his price is super cheap, but I don't think he can do it. Even as good as he's been, the park just is too hard. And maybe if it was a lefty, or it's just a bad spot for him, I think. And even though the price is super low, I can't do it either.
Looking at David Price, Rodriguez had a no-hitter through 4 before he left that game. Do people chase Price here in this matchup against Baltimore?
I think they do for sure. And people already play Price a little bit, and Baltimore struggled. And I just think people will for sure chase the spot, especially after they saw what Eduardo did tonight, where he just completely was making them look stupid at the plate. So David Price always has strikeout upside, and I think they'll chase it. I don't think I'll be one of them, but I think people will do it.
All right. The slate for pitching is it's pretty weak. We have a spot where Lester is against Milwaukee. We'll talk about that. We have Yu Darvish, Carrasco, Casimir against Philly. Like, we have some decent pitching options. So I think Price is in play in tournaments, but he's not a guy that I love here.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, there's not a ton up at the top, but I don't know. I mean, he is somewhat cheap. I mean, when you look at his price on DraftKings and Fantasy Draft, he is somewhat cheap, but I don't know, especially when Baltimore struggled tonight. I just hate to come back with them. Another lefty, just like tonight. I just don't like the spot. I'd rather go in a different direction with a guy like you or a couple other guys we'll talk about along the way.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk bats in this game. Anything stand out to you here for the Red Sox or the Orioles?
Just looking at the prices, and it looks like Xander Bogarts is, what is he, 7K? He looks like he's 3,500 on DraftKings, so I'm assuming he's like 7K on Fantasy Draft, which he hasn't been very good, and I've been off him for the most part, but that's just way too cheap if he's in there. And I mean, that price is probably built for Tillman, so it's a little bit different of a matchup, but I mean, that's just too cheap, isn't it?
Yeah, I like that price on him for sure. 6,800 over on draft. And yeah, I feel like there's a few guys that we can look at here. Price plays. We can look at Steve Pearce, 7,600, Mark Trumbo, 7,600, Adam Jones, 7,800. And I think we can even throw in Sandy Leone. Like, this guy is just mashing the baseball right now.
Yeah, you said all those Baltimore prices, and that was the trap I fell into tonight. I mean, I had so many good plays all over the place, but I loaded Baltimore in almost every lineup because I love guys like Pierce against a lefty, and they just did nothing. So I can't wait to come back with them again tomorrow. All these guys are really good prices. I mean, you can go up and down the list, all the righties. I mean, Jonathan Shoop even is around 6K on Fantasy Draft. So what do you think about this Benedilli or whatever his name is from Boston? I mean,
I love this kid, man. I've been talking about this guy for 2 weeks now. Ever since he got called up, me and Siege were super excited. I think that's where the fandom comes in, knowing about a double-A hitter. This kid is one of the top prospects in Boston whole farm system. And if you know how good Paul Tuckett is and how good Boston is as far as a farm system goes, you have to get excited when you get a top prospect get called up. And, from what we're hearing, this kid's going to stay here through the playoff run. So, he hits ninth, which is a little, concerning. But on the road with a Boston offense, there's a good chance he gets 4 at-bats here, and he's 4,800 on draft. Like, I continue to play him on draft every day.
Yeah, and it sounds weird, but I actually like it sometimes when they hit in that 9 hole because you can wrap around easier with the stacks if you like some more of the Boston bats, especially like Mookie Betts, who's just on fire. I mean, he's priced up, but there's a lot of cheap pitchers, so it's easy to fit him. And I agree with you on the double-A guy. I mean, 4,800 is just like lock and load every single day. I don't care if he's in the 9 hole, unless he's got a super tough pitching matchup, which he doesn't tomorrow, obviously. I mean, you just play him, and you just keep playing him until his price goes up.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of like a Sandy Leone, him, Mookie Betts, Dustin Pedroia type stack, getting that bottom and moving up to the top. I like doing that when they're on the road. Next game here, Los Angeles Dodgers, Philadelphia Phillies, Scott Kazmir, Jake Thompson. A lot of people are going to have interest in Kazmir. He's probably going to be one of the most popular pitchers on this late slate because we don't have Coors Field and we don't have a lot of solid pitching options, and you get a lefty against Philadelphia. What's your thoughts here on Kazmir?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's one of the most appealing or interesting guys on the slate just because of this price point. And like you said at the beginning, there's not a ton at the top as far as pitching that you can love. I mean, even Yu Darvish is in a tough pitching environment. I'm sure it'll be super hot during the day, or it is a night game in Texas, but I'm assuming it'll be a little hotter. The last 2 days have been only in the 80s or something, so we'll see if it gets hot again, but I don't love the spot. I mean, Oakland's kind of been held down the last 2 days, so I think Kazmir will be really popular. He might be the most owned on the slate, I would think, because they scored a bunch of runs tonight, and they're going to be a huge favorite tomorrow.
Yeah, if you're playing on fantasy draft, you're playing him because of his price. Like 15.2, that's just too cheap. And DraftKings as well. Like when you need an SP2, like you can mix and match your SP1s and take a shot at some of these top guys. But, Kazmir, I hate using the word safe when it comes to pitchers, but he's one of the safer options on the board today.
Yeah, especially when you're factoring in like price per dollar type thing where he's just too cheap. So, I mean, even if he gets you like 15 to 20 points, like that's huge on fantasy draft. And I think that's what he's going to do. I mean, he gives up runs, but he also strikes people out. He's going to get 6 or 7 innings. The Phillies have the worst home offense, I think, on the year as far as what I was looking at today. So you get the worst offense versus a pretty hot offense, decent pitcher. I mean, everything points to him being super chalky.
Jake Thompson on the other side pitched better in the start against Colorado in his last start. I know a lot of people were stacking against him in that start. Let's go back to the well with the Dodgers bats is where I'm thinking. They were one of my favorite stacks on Tuesday in the hour of research I did when I got up. I like them here again here.
Yeah, I mean, at Philadelphia, you got a 9-run total actually with Kazmir, and Kazmir's minus 160 range. So I love the Dodgers bats again, and I just don't think Thompson's very good. I mean, I watched him both starts. I think he gave up 6 the first start and 3 the second start. So he did strike out a few guys the second game, but he wasn't very good in that one either. And I mean, I think the Dodgers will be popular, but like guys like Grandal, who we were talking about before we came on, I mean, he's just on fire, just killing the ball. Their lineup is so deep. I think you have to be interested in the Dodgers.
Yeah, one of my favorite stacks. DraftKings and Fantasy Draft, though, they price these guys up. So you're going to have to pay for a Dodgers stack, but when you're pitching Kazmir at his discounted price, like you can fit another one of these middle range pitchers in that we'll talk about. Even in that first game that we talked about, David Price in that $16,000 range, like that's not awful to fit with Kazmir and stack the Dodgers here. So it's something that I'm going to look at. And on top of Grandal being hot, Jock Peterson's hot right now too. And when this guy is hitting the baseball, that's when we want him because we know he has the pop and he has the power. It's just the strikeouts. But we look at his game log right now, and he's just hitting the baseball, and that's when we want to jump on Jock.
Yeah, his game log is super impressive for game log lovers. I mean, He's got double digits in 6 out of 7, it looks like, and bunch of home runs too. 2 home runs in the last 3 days. I think he hit one tonight too. I'm pretty sure. If not, he had a big game tonight, I believe. That's the thing about the Dodgers is the bottom of their lineup is rolling right now. So when you get your bottom of the lineup going like that, and you got guys like Seager and Utley hit 2 bombs tonight, you got Reddick in the middle of the lineup. The lineup is just so deep that a young pitcher like this is going to have a nightmare of a time getting through it. And I mean, I just don't see any way they don't score at least 4 or 5 runs.
Now, looking at the Phillies side of things, we talked about Kazmir being one of the most popular pitchers on the slate, and we both agreed. But thinking game theory, thinking tournaments here, could we do like a little mini stack with like Franco, Athier, and Joseph, maybe Cameron Rupp? We even get that 4th guy in there.
Yeah, I mean, easily. You look at their prices, and of course, I mean, especially in tournaments, it's not like Kazmir. Neither one of us thinks he's like the best play of all time. So you can. It's still a 9-run total. The Dodgers aren't like a massive favorite or anything. I mean, they're minus 160. So Vegas thinks Philadelphia is going to score some runs, and going against the chalk pitcher, they're not going to be owned. So I love everything about that stack for tournaments. And you look at the prices; it's just so appealing. I mean, even like Tyler Goodell, if he's in the lineup, it's only 4,800 on fantasy drafts. So you can really stack it up, and you can get some big time bats in there with the stack and the best pitchers on the game. So I mean, I really like it, especially Rupp. I always like playing him, especially at 8,100. No one's going to have him.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure he took Maeda deep on Tuesday night. So Kansas City at Detroit, Ventura against Sanchez. I don't have a lot of interest in this game. Ventura might pique some people's interest if Miggy's back out, and I don't really expect Miggy to be in the lineup, but I still don't think he's in play here.
No, I agree with you too. I don't think it really matters if Miggy's in or not. I'm assuming he's going to be out for a few days. I mean, he's an older guy and a little banged up from yesterday. So, I mean, you can take a little bit advantage of Detroit with him out, but I just don't think Ventura's the guy. I've been stacking against him most of the year, and he's done it with Mears a few of the starts and hasn't really been too terrible, but I have no confidence in him, and tomorrow's definitely not the spot for me to use him.
Sanchez. Oh, man. Sanchez really struggles with right-handed bats. Like, he is 384 WOBA, almost a 33% hard contact rate, a lot of home runs to righties. Like, he struggles a lot with righties. Like, where do we really pick on him? Like, do we take Cuthbert, Kane, Paulo Orlando, Salvador Perez? Do we pick on him with these guys, or do we just avoid the situation in general?
This game's one of the more interesting on the slate for me, just because it's like somewhat close spread and it's a 9-run total. But then you look at the price on Sanchez, and he's got big strikeout upside, and he's super cheap. But I don't know if you really need the savings. So there's a lot of different dynamics to it. And then you look at the prices on the hitters on Fantasy Draft, and basically every single hitter in this game is underpriced. I mean, there's not a single guy that I look at and think like he's too expensive. So in a 9-run total game, I think this is a good game to go to for stacks. I mean, especially how you don't really want to handpick any Kansas City guy. I think maybe you just stack them up and hope it's one of those games that Sanchez kind of has a rough one like he tends to do here and there.
I will single out one guy that I like for cash games from Kansas City here. This guy's just too cheap on Fantasy Draft. If you're playing on draft where you can play multiple first basemen, Eric Hosmer at 6,400 is my first Fantasy Draft play under 8K. Like, that's just too cheap for this matchup. They're on the road. There's a good chance he gets that maybe fit that bat. So I think that we can look at Eric Hosmer here at 6,400 in cash games.
Yeah, for sure. And they're starting to get their offense going a little more. Kansas City, they even scored a couple runs off Verlander tonight, and Morales hit a bomb, I think, and he's only 6K. So you look up and down. I mean, even Sal Perez, righties, basically free. Lorenzo Cain, 7,200. I mean, their lineup is super affordable to stack it up and even do a game stack. But I mean, without any pitchers, maybe you just go up for the top 2 pitchers and then stack this game and see what happens.
Yeah, I can definitely get behind that. I'm with you there. Miami at Cincinnati. Homer Bailey, Homer Bailey. That's such a fitting name for Homer Bailey. And Andrew Kashner. Another game that I think that we can kind of look elsewhere for pitching and look at some of these bats.
I don't know what it is about Homer Bailey, but he kind of sticks out at me. I watched his last start. He's always been known as like a talented guy, and I mean, he just looked awesome last start. 11 strikeouts, only gave up 3 hits. I mean, 11 strikeouts in 6 innings. That's just ridiculous, even against Milwaukee. So, on a slate where there's not a ton up top, I really like the upside he could bring in a matchup like this. Even though the park's terrible, and I mean, I don't know, with Stanton out of the lineup, Miami's offense is a little weaker, and I don't know, I have a little bit of interest in him, especially with his price. I mean, he's more expensive than David Price on the slate. He's more expensive than Carlos Carrasco on the slate. So, like, I don't know. I kind of like it where you don't need the savings. Go up to a guy that you know no one's going to play. It's super interesting to me.
I'm not playing him. I'll be one of those guys that are not playing him because, like, I feel like, okay, so he pitched well against San Diego and he pitched well against Milwaukee. Like, Homer Bailey is still Homer Bailey. This guy has over a 34% hard contact rate over the last 3 years. Like, he's still Homer Bailey. It's Cincinnati. And, like, as far as Miami goes, they're not the best team in baseball by any means. They lost one of their best hitters, but they just don't strike out a lot. So you're getting a team that doesn't strike out a lot. You're overpaying for Homer Bailey because of 2 matchups that were excellent. And, you know, he's back home in Cincinnati. I like the Marlins here more than I like Homer Bailey.
I just don't think price matters, though. Like, as far we can pretty much get whoever we want on the slate with the way the price is set up. So I kind of look at it just as like pick the guys you want in tournament. If he's going to be super low owned, and I mean, as a favorite, every single total, it's weird looking at all the totals. They're all sitting at like 8.5 or 9 runs. So I don't know if I've ever seen a slate where basically every total is in the same range. It's kind of weird to look at.
All right. I can get behind the price doesn't matter, but I can't get behind Homer Bailey.
I mean, I'm not saying it's like a foolproof plan. I'm just saying for tournaments, I don't completely hate it.
The only other thing that is good here for Homer Bailey is Andrew Kashner's on the other side of this game, and he should get some run support.
Yeah, I mean, especially in this ballpark, it's been rainy here the last few days, but who knows? I think tomorrow it's supposed to be a little nicer, and if it stays nice, I mean, it's going to be hot, which means that ball is going to be jumping off the bat, which means a long night for Mr. Kashner against these lefties like Votto, and Schebler has looked pretty decent at the plate for 5,600. So, I mean, I'm definitely interested in the Reds bats versus Kashner.
Yeah, Votto, Schebler, the lefties here, I think they're all in play. Obviously, Kashner gives up a ton of hard contact when it comes to left-handed bats. He's a little bit better against righties, but still a 345 WOBA, 31% hard contact to righties. So a guy like Adam Duvall might be a sneaky tournament play because everybody's going to be on the lefties. You could play Duvall as a one-off where everybody's going to have that Cincinnati stack. So I don't mind Duvall here. Don't mind these guys. And looking at the other side, looking at the Marlins side of this game, like, man, you're going to have a tough time telling me not to play Christian Yelich here.
I was just thinking that same thing about Ozuna. Like, he's only 6,400, and I like Homer Bailey, but how in the world is Ozuna 6,400? Like, that is so much upside for so cheap, even though it's righty-righty, and that just might get him lower owned. I mean, he's had a good series too, so I just think that's way too cheap. I mean, I don't mind Yelich. Like I said originally, I don't think price really matters today. So even though he's priced up at 9,600, I mean, he's still definitely in play, and he's probably the best bat if you take price out of it.
Yeah, when I started to make some FanDuel lineups on Tuesday night, and I was like, why is Christian Yelich 3K? And I played him in a whole bunch of teams, and he hit that bailout home run late in that game, and just kind of works that way for you. But 3,300 on FanDuel, Yelich is a guy that I think that you can look at in all formats here. He's a guy that I'm going to be playing a lot. Yeah, I don't mind Ozuna, and we can look at D. Gordon too, can't we? I think this is a spot that D might be in play as well.
That's what I'm saying about this slate. It's just such a weird slate with every game having like a 9-run total or in that range that you could almost make a case for literally almost every team on the slate as far as stacks. And if you like Miami, I think D. Gordon almost has to be included in the stack just because he's hitting in the one hole, all that speed. I mean, versus Homer Bailey, it's a good spot for him for sure.
Minnesota at Atlanta, Mike Fultonevich against Kyle Gibson. So we were in Minnesota for the last time these two teams met. Fultonevich was a guy that I targeted on that slate. He went 5 1/3 and won. He gave up 6 earned runs and 12 hits in that game and won. You want to talk about weird lines? That was a weird line. And Fultonevich is a guy that I like, and I just don't know if I can do it here on this slate.
It's so weird that he can give up 12 hits, 6 runs. And look, it's just crazy that he could get a win. I mean, he went 5 innings, like you said, 6 runs, 12 hits. Like, how in the world can he win with the Braves offense behind him? That's one of the crazier stat lines I've seen all season, I think. And that just means tomorrow it'll be like a 2-1 game with Gibson winning or something. I mean, this game looks like a pitching matchup to me, and I just can't take much of the offense in this one.
You could get both these guys at a pretty decent price on FanDuel, 6,700 and 6,500. We said price doesn't really matter here on the slate with no pitchers really being like outrageous. They could be tournament options. I think both these guys are in play in tournaments. I think I'd go more towards Fultonevich if Sano's out. That would kind of be where I would go with this game because Fultonevich is a guy that he throws in the high 90s. That's upside for me alone. Like, it's just about controlling it, and he's still young. He's still probably a year away from being what he's going to be in 3 years. So he's a guy that I like on the slate. I don't love him, but I don't love anything on the slate, to be honest.
Yeah, that's like the strongest case for taking the pitchers in this game is, I mean, the price doesn't matter, but it's still nice to get guys cheaper and really take whatever bats you want. So I agree with you. I mean, I like Fulte a little more than Gibson. Gibson's always scary, not much upside, but I don't mind either one of them on a slate where we're not really overly in love with a single pitcher on the board.
All right. Bats in this game, outside of Dozier, Freeman, and Kemp, I'm really not going to have exposure.
Yeah, I'm looking at the prices and knowing that I'm a little interested in the pitching. I just don't see anything I like that much. I mean, I'm trying to look for even a value guy, and I just don't see it. They're really, I mean, maybe Trevor Plouffe at only 6K, but I mean, nothing sticks off the page on a 10-game slate with plenty of offense all over the board. I don't really see a reason to go to this game.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. Matt Kemp on Fantasy Draft at 7,600. He would probably be my favorite play, but you can look at Freeman and you can look at these other guys that we mentioned already, but not a lot of love. White Sox at Cleveland, Carlos Carrasco, Anthony Rendano. I don't know how this guy's pronounced his name. Yeah, this guy, the righty, the guy that's pitched one start this season. Yeah, that guy. What's your thoughts here on Carrasco? We've seen Kluber pitch well against the White Sox. The White Sox just haven't been that team that we're really afraid of this year.
This looks like a Carrasco slate for me. I mean, I'm not even a Carrasco guy at all. I hardly ever roster him. But on a slate where there's not much upside guys and there's not a ton at the top, he just gives you a little bit of upside that the other guys don't. I mean, his last 2 starts, he gave up 3 runs, which is pretty normal, but he went 7 innings and struck out 8 and 9 in the 2 games. So, I mean, if you told me right now that tomorrow he's going 7 innings with 8 strikeouts and gives up 3 runs, I mean, I'm playing him on every single team. So I think that's something he could do in this spot. And I don't love him, but I mean, I'm interested on a slate where there's not a ton out there, and he's pretty cheap on Fantasy Draft. So I think he's going to be one of the more popular guys for sure.
I think he's going to be popular too. And we talked about Casimir being a guy that a lot of people are going to look at. I think Carrasco is probably going to be that guy for me. Like, I mentioned there's a guy that I liked a lot, and this is kind of the spot that, I'm going to end up on, I think. And we see, we see strikeouts come and go so much with these types of pitchers, and really nothing's changed as far as velocity goes. That's something that I always like to look at when the guy's going up and down in strikeouts and up and down in strikeouts. But the velocity's kind of stayed there for Carrasco. So I don't hate him here.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, the more you look at it, he's got to be like the safe, what you never say, the safest option with him. But I think on the slate tomorrow, I mean, when you factor price into it, he's right there with Casimir as far as the safest. And on two starter sites, I mean, I think those are the two guys that people are going to land on the most.
It's probably where I'll end up in, the Survivor or anything like that. Some 3-entry max teams. It's probably where I'm going to end up because I feel like we can get so many bats on this slate that I'm okay with going with two kind of solid pitchers here.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, the thing about both of them is, too, we're talking about how safe they are, but they both have upside, too, to strike guys out. And they're both under 20K on fantasy draft, which is just too cheap for guys that have the most upside on the slate.
All right. Anthony Rendano. I should know more about this guy. Like, he came up in the Boston system. He was drafted by Boston in 2011, I think, 2012, if I remember correctly. But what we've seen so far in the big leagues from this guy, we've seen 65 innings now in the big leagues. He has a 6.07 SIERA. His xFIP is through the roof. His whip is really high. The K per nine is way down. The home run per nine is way up. And the hard contact rate is up. That leads to one thing and one thing only for me. I love the Cleveland Indians on this slate. I'm going to have a hard time not stacking them a ton here.
Yeah, I mean, everything points to a lot of runs being scored. I'm actually surprised the total's only 9, which says a lot about Carrasco, I guess. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, everything points to them being the best offense on the slate, or at least the easiest to predict. I mean, versus this guy. There's no way this guy's going to shut him down with all these lefties at the top, and I love them too. I mean, I couldn't agree more.
All right. Cameron's texting me. Like, come on, Cam. We're trying to record the podcast. Like, man, this guy. No, I'm kidding. We all love Cameron. I just had to give him a hard time because, he's texting me about business and work. And I'm trying to work, man. Come on. All right, let's talk bats. White Sox-wise, I really don't like anything here. I think I'm going to have a lot of Carrasco, and I'm just going to kind of roll with it. Usually, if I go heavy on somebody, I'll roll a hedge stack, where I would do that with Casimir here. I would roll a hedge stack, but I don't like 3 or 4 guys enough here from White Sox.
I say it every time I do a show on here, but the White Sox are probably my least favorite offense in all of baseball, which says a lot with a lot of bad teams out there. But I just don't like anyone on the team, really. And Melky Cabrera is pretty hot, so I could maybe make a case for him, like in cash games, just because he does get on base and make stuff happen. But I just don't really see a reason to use any of them, especially when we're talking about rolling out Carrasco in most of our teams.
Indians, man, I like the Indians a lot here. Jose Ramirez is probably my favorite play because he's the highest price guy, 10-8. But when we look at Ramirez right now, this guy is just hitting everything. And I love guys that are hot. It's a thing that I like a lot. We talk about it all the time. This guy's hot. Excellent matchup for him. He's going to be a guy that I play a lot just because he's the highest priced guy. And I love paying up to be contrarian.
I got a different thing up. I think I have the wrong price because mine said he's priced at 8,400, so I might have the wrong thing up. But if he's the most high priced guy on there, that's one of my favorite moves in tournaments is go for the guy that looks overpriced on your favorite stack. And I agree completely. I mean, I love that guy too. He's always making stuff happen, and he's one of the reasons they've had such a good season.
Yeah, and he's 3,200 on FanDuel. Just click the little green button next to his name. We talked about it with Trout against Felix. Like, this is a spot that I'm really confident with clicking a little green button next to Jose Ramirez's name.
Yeah, it's fun to lock in on a guy too each slate. I always try to have at least one or two guys that I'm extra heavy on just because they're in a great spot. You're confident in them. And I mean, to do good in tournaments, you got to key on a few people. So I agree with you. I mean, on a day that price doesn't matter, go up and get them and really lock them in there and hope other people don't.
Milwaukee at Chicago, John Lester, Jimmy Nelson. What's your thoughts here on Lester with the potential of Ryan Braun being out with a knee injury that he left Tuesday's game with?
If Braun's out, it really gets interesting because Milwaukee's lineup's already depleted and they've been decent the last couple of games, but a lot of it was Braun doing a lot of damage lately, and he's been awesome the last couple of weeks. So if he's out of the lineup, it really clears the way, and you have to like him. I mean, I'm never much of a Lester guy because of how up and down he is, and I just never fully trust him. But if there's no Braun, I have to be interested, especially on a day where I don't care that he's a little more expensive than he should be.
I'm with you. It's all. This is going to be 100%. Wait until you see the lineup type play, because if the lineup comes out and it's weak, that's when you're going to want to jump on it. If the lineup comes out, Bronson there, Flores, not Flores, Ramon. Oh my God, why can't I think of this guy's name?
You're talking about
Perez.
Perez, yeah.
Yeah, Perez. If Perez is in the 4 spot behind Braun, and it looks a little bit tougher, I still think I'm going to have interest, but we're going to talk about bats here in this game, and when you're looking at the other side, like, we're going to want to pick on Jimmy Nelson in this game.
Yeah, especially with all these lefty guys you can throw at him. And, I mean, I agree. And I don't think I'll have much interest in Lester if the Milwaukee lineup comes out right with Braun and Hernan Perez and those guys in there. I just like the other guys like Carrasco and Kazmir better, but I don't think Braun will be in there either. I mean, there's no reason for him to be if he left tonight, and I hope he's not, because then it gives us more options at pitcher. But I agree with you on the Cubs offense as well. I mean, some of those guys like Dexter Fowler, Zobrist, Rizzo. I mean, there's just so many options up and down that you can use. Even Coughlin, that hitting at the bottom, 5,700 is just way too cheap.
Don't leave off Chris Bryant on your stack. If you're stacking Chicago and you're playing on the lefties, do not leave Chris Bryant, off your stack. Looking for some value here. That's always tough when it comes to the Cubs, and you kind of touched on the guy that I wanted to talk about, but Jason Hayward at 6K, like, depending on where he hits in the lineup, like, he could be a really solid value play as well.
God, he's a guy I just literally can't play. Like, I see his name and I just cringe like nails on a chalkboard. Like, look at his game logs. He has one double-digit game in the last, like, month and a half. Like, he is so terrible. I would rather have Stevie up there than freaking Hayward. Like, you'd have a much better chance going yard for me.
Fun fact of the day, this is the day that we played Home Run Derby at Angel Stadium, and I hit a bunch of home runs in the first round and sucked in the second round. Looking at Milwaukee, even, if this lineup's weak or whatever, Jonathan VR is an excellent tournament play here because John Lester really stinks at holding runners on, and VR will take advantage of that. We could see multiple stolen bases from him if he's able to get on base here.
I look at him almost identical to how I look at Altuve. I mean, obviously he's not as good a player. I'm not saying that, but I look at him in the same direction. Like, you're paying way up for a guy that always looks a little too high priced and like awkward, but they have a chance to go off on anyone because of how much they do on the field. And I mean, he's got like over 40 stolen bases, I think, right?
Yeah.
That's just crazy upside.
Yeah, he's right up there with Billy Hamilton this season. Like, we're looking at 46 stolen bases. So, yeah, he's up there.
Yeah, I mean, so you can't go wrong. I mean, any price and any matchup. Sometimes I like taking guys like that in tough matchups even more so that no one has them and you get all those stolen bases to yourself, especially against Lester. I mean, it's not even fair. Like, anyone can steal off him, but VR, if he gets on base, he's going to steal second and third.
I can't steal off him, that's for sure.
You can hit the bomb, though. I'd take you over Hayward. I wouldn't take you over for stolen bases, though.
Actually, like, you don't want me against the lefty. Even though I was a righty, I always hit righties better. I had those reverse splits going. Oakland at Texas, Darvish, Sean Manaea. Darvish probably the top tournament play on the slate, right? Like, this guy, we finally seen him get up there and pitch count in his last outing. The bullpen was used a lot before that game. And it was just a tough game against Detroit. Like, he was struggling with control in that game. But the positive, like, we always look for that silver lining in any type of start. And the positive was the pitch count in that last start.
Yeah, I mean, he was slowly working his way up. And the two starts before that, I felt like he could go over 100 maybe. But it was just like one of those things where the inning would end and he'd be on a weird pitch count to where they can't really roll him out and then just pull him one batter in or something. So I think he's pretty safe for pitches finally, which is the biggest positive, like you said. And they really shut down Oakland the last 2 days. I mean, Oakland's got 4 on the board right now as we're doing the podcast, but a bunch of them came late in the game. And I mean, he's definitely got the most upside. And if you look at his strikeouts the last 5 since he's come back, I mean, 11, 6, 9, 8, and 5. So he's always got that strikeout upside, which is nice on a slate like this.
Yeah, I'm looking at the upside. That's where I'm going here. Like we agree that Kazmir, he's pretty safe. Carrasco's pretty safe, but like upside wise, I think that Carrasco definitely has upside as well, but Hugh is up there, and I feel like he's going to be lower owned here, and that's always what I want when it comes to guys with upside. And I just outside of Stephen Vogt, like Chris Davis, obviously a guy that. I think he pounded Hugh the last time they played each other. I'll pull that up real quick. But I just think this is a good spot for some upside. Chris Davis, 2 for 3 with a home run in that game, against you earlier this season. But I'm just not really too worried about this offense as a whole.
No, I always worry about Oakland more against bad lefties. But, I mean, against a really good righty that strikes out a bunch and has really good stuff, I mean, I don't worry about Oakland much at all. I mean, the only thing I worry about is this ballpark if it gets a little hotter and it's up around 100 degrees or something. But as long as it's been like the last 2 days and it's in the 80s, I'm not overly worried at all about Oakland.
All right, let's talk bats in this game. We'll start with Oakland. Outside of Chris Davis, is there anybody that you would target here?
I mean, I look at Semien at 5,400 and Vogt at 6,000. I mean, they're both not in the greatest of spots versus you, but they're just so cheap. But then we go back to the original point, like we don't really need the savings on a slate like this, so then it makes it tough. So I'd say no, I guess.
Looking at the Texas side of things, I feel like I'm a broken record by now, but Carlos Beltran is mashing left-handed pitching this season. Like his ISO is through the roof against lefties this season. Love Beltran. He's hot, and he's been hitting lefties this season. So those are the 2 guys that I like. And, man, what is this power that Lucroy has gotten since he's been in Texas?
It's probably that stadium more than anything, but I heard, I think they said he's got a career high in home runs this year with 19, I believe. I think I heard that on the game the other day. But either way, he's got a huge power surge and versatile lefty. He sat out today, so he'll be in the lineup tomorrow for sure. And I love the Texas bats. They might be my favorite on the slate in this park, depending on how hot the game is. I mean, I just love it. I mean, even Ian Desmond struggled, but he's got plenty of upside versus lefties. So I love the lineup up and down, really.
So it's supposed to be in the 80s, like low 80s, to start this game with some rain at the beginning of this game. So we're going to have to pay attention to Roths. And looks good after about an hour into the game, but it's supposed to be in the high 70s to mid 70s at that point. So I would even like you a little bit more in that area.
Why is it so cold in Texas this time of year? Like this whole series has been pretty cold. It's weird this time of year.
They've been getting a lot of rain like we've been getting in Florida. Like we've gotten rain almost every day, so they've been getting hit by rain too.
Yeah, that's the same thing in Cincinnati. It just must be rain all around the country. It really cools it down, so it's nice.
Yeah, because we don't see any games outside of the Baltimore game in the 90s today. Like Baltimore has the highest in Philadelphia. Those 2 games are the only games that are in the 90s to start here on this slate.
That has to help the pitching. I mean, the last few weeks has been a lot of games in the hundreds and a ton of runs being scored. So maybe it flips back a little bit and we get a little bit of pitching on this slate that it looks like an offensive slate, but you never know in baseball.
Yep. New York Mets, Arizona Diamondbacks, Jonathan Neese is back in our lives, and Zach Godley on the other side. Like another game that we can target for bats, like up and down. This game is going to have some targets here.
Yeah, we have I think it's our first 9.5 run total too, and it's even pushing towards 10. So I bet it gets to 10 by tip-off tomorrow with these 2 pitchers. I mean, what more could you want than these 2 pitchers at Chase Field? I mean, it just looks so ripe for some runs.
Jonathan Neese has a 5.13 ERA with Pittsburgh this season, so he's not been that good.
I mean, I don't know what more you could want than the Arizona bats against Neese in this park. I mean, and then you look at it, though, and Arizona's only a small favorite, so it looks like game stack written all over it to me.
Yeah, because Zach Godley hasn't been good at all. Like, he's only in there right now, kind of making these spot starts. Patrick Corbin, that's who he's coming in here for now because Patrick Corbin's been so bad too. So like Zach Godley has just not been good. And yeah, I'm with you. I think this is a good game stack.
And you look at the prices too, like everybody's priced up for the most part in this game. And it doesn't look like on the surface that there's any great values. But then you go back to our point we keep making that prices really don't matter on this slate. So go up and spend some money on some of these bats and maybe people don't play it. I mean, even like Jay Bruce, like he might be my favorite play on the slate. 9,600 versus Godley. He's kind of hidden because he plays for the Mets, and I just don't think the Mets will be overly popular, even though it's such a good spot versus Godley. I mean, they're kind of hidden.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like game stack these teams. It's excellent plays here, and like look at guys like Yasmani Tomas, look at Jay Bruce, look at Gene Segura, look at the guys that other people aren't looking at, and that's where you beat people with these stacks. And Jake Lamb at 8,400 in this matchup, like give me some Jake Lamb here.
Yeah, I was just looking at him. I mean, lefty, which means absolutely nothing versus a guy like Nice. I mean, what's he going to pitch? 4 innings? So you're going to get 5 innings of bullpen. Plus, Nice is just terrible, so probably hit a bomb off him anyways. And I mean, maybe lefty, you just get the initial read of people never wanting to play lefty, and that's a good thing for us.
Yeah, and when we look at Nice's stats, yeah, it's a small sample size this season. It's only 29 innings, but he has a 375 WOBA with a 39% hard contact rate to lefties. The whip is 1.69. Like, so even in this lefty-lefty matchup, if we get some of these lefties towards the top of the order, like that's where you go a little sneaky on a 10-game slate with so many offenses.
Yeah, I mean, I agree completely. And there's just so many directions you can go in this game. And really, there's not too many guys I wouldn't like in the matchup just because both pitchers are so bad and both bullpens are kind of beat up too. So, I mean, I just don't see any reason not to play a ton of bats in this game.
If you're playing on FanDuel and you need a catcher, the Beef Castillo is only 3,000 on this slate.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you don't give him some serious consideration as long as he's in that lineup.
All right, let's move on to the last game here on this slate. Tyler Skaggs, Cody Martin facing off in LA. Skaggs, man, like, whew. You want to talk about a rough couple starts, and one of those starts were, it was at Safeco against the Mariners, and he struggled in that game as well.
He had those 3 or 4 starts actually where he came back and he was just unbelievable. And like people were like, is this guy really that good? And then we found out the last 2 starts that no, he's not that good. He just got bombed for 4 and 7, like you said, 10 hits last start. I mean, Seattle beat him up for 9 hits and 4 runs, same matchup. So I mean, I think this is going to be one of the lower total games just because of the park and the offenses and everything involved. But I don't know how you could play Skaggs at this price with all these guys in the same price range.
Yeah, and, looking at the other side of things, like, Seattle didn't have a lot of places they could go here. Joe Weiland, the thing is, like, so – if Cody Martin gets shelled in this game, which we don't know, as far as stats go, there's nothing too impressive with this guy. We haven't seen a lot of him. Like, we're looking at Joe Weiland being the long guy out of the bullpen here, coming in after Cody Martin. And we know how bad Joe Weiland is. Like, you want a late game hammer, sneaky stack. The Angels are a tough team to stack, but man, we could look at Trout, Pujols, and Calhoun here as a little mini 3-way stack.
Yeah, and no one ever plays the Angels, and I mean it's definitely super sneaky, which is nice on this slate. We don't usually talk about games that are going on, but I just seen Oakland just did the dumbest thing I've ever seen in a game ever. I mean, it was a tie game in the 10th, 1 out, and there was first and second with 1 out, and they walked Beltre with first and second.
It was second and third.
It was second. It was a single though. The play before.
No, it was second and third.
A wild pitch or something? Because I watched Beltre single, and then it said first and second on the grade. It had to be second and third, but Beltre singled the play before, so they must have thrown a wild pitch or something. But that makes sense if it was second and third. I couldn't figure out why they were walking him. And then they drill Odor the next pitch and the game's over. So very interesting. I'm glad you said second and third because that was bothering me.
Yeah, Beltran, I think Beltran hit a double, or Beltran hit a single and then Desmond hit a double or something. And then I think it was second and third. I think, I'm paying attention to the podcast. So
yeah, me too. So I'm sure I was wrong, but it just blew my mind that it happened.
I would hope that, it was.
Yeah, it says it too. I just looked at the app. It says Carlos Beltran singled, and then they intentionally walked in Beltran.
All right, well, that doesn't make that much sense.
I hope that you're right, though. I pray that you're right, because why in the world would you walk a guy with first and second? It blew my mind.
All right, that blows my mind. All right, so we got Tyler Skaggs here, the lefty. We can look at Nelson Cruz. We can look at any of the right-handed bats, and if you want to go a little contrarian, maybe Robinson Cano.
I mean, do these algorithms really respect Skaggs that much? I mean, look at these prices. Gutierrez, 6,800. Dejo Lee, 5,600. I mean, Aoki's not any good, but 5,600. I mean, the whole team is free, basically, except Nelson Cruz, who, 9,600 is even too cheap for him versus a bad lefty.
Tell me why I shouldn't play Albert Pujols on Fantasy Draft on this slate.
I mean, he's just a great play. I mean, he's so sneaky too. Like he isn't going to be more than 5% owned on this slate, so it looks like the perfect time to roll him out and hope good things happen.
You can say he's been cold, and you can say all this stuff, and okay, I'll hear that stuff, but I'm just looking at this price tag of 6,300 in a matchup against a guy that may only go 4 innings, and then we're going to see Joe Weiland. Man, I like Pujols a lot here at 6,300, and I like Calhoun a lot at 7,200.
This whole game, I wasn't looking at it before you said it either, but I love the point you made, and it looks like a super sneaky spot that could win some money, win some people some money with that late night hammer.
All right, that's going to wrap it up here for the podcast, the game by game breakdown. Let's play some home run derby. I always miss home run derby when I take some time off. So I'll let you get first stack here, or first hit, and we don't have Coors Field, so everybody's in play.
Versus lefty. Let me go with our boy Carlos Beltran. I mean, I like him up top, and he looks right versus lefty. So I like the park. I like him. Let me go with him up top.
I'm going to target the lefty too, but mine's going to be in that Arizona game, and I'm going to take Goldschmidt.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Goldschmidt looks like a lock to hit a bomb tomorrow. Then the next one, I will go – I don't know. Give me Steve Pearce, a sneaky one versus Price. I'm assuming he'll be in the lineup again tomorrow. I always love him versus a lefty. I don't think he'll be owned. So give me Mr. Pearce.
All right, I'm gonna go kind of chalky here, but I don't even care. Give me the boomstick. Give me Nelson Cruz against the lefty.
Oh man, you're like a -250 favorite over me already. I mean, I'm going too sneaky. I got another sneaky guy too that I think's going to hit a bomb, so I'll just keep the trend going. Scott Schebler is my cheap guy versus Cashner. He's going to go yard for me for sure.
I like it. I like that call. I'll go a little contrarian here, and I'll go with. Man, I guess that's not contrarian enough. I was gonna say Jock Peterson, but that's not contrarian enough. Let's go Matt Kemp.
I like it.
Kyle Gibson, Matt Kemp. Let's go
with
Matt
Kemp. You brought the line down a little bit with Matt Kemp. I don't know though. I took Schebler, so I don't know if the line moved much.
Well, when we're looking at Gibson, Gibson's just not a guy that I'm really scared of. So instead of going Freeman with the chalk, I'll go Matt Kemp, and that's going to wrap it up for that. At the end of the day, if you had to pick one pitcher not named Lester, Darvish, or Price to pick up a win, I'm actually going to throw in Carrasco and Kazmir as well. I'm going to make you go really crazy here and give me a guy because when we're looking at it, we both think Kazmir is going to win. We both think Carrasco is going to win. We both think Price, Darvish, and Lester have good chances to win. So I'm going to rule out those 5 guys, and I'm going to make you go sneaky here and give me a guy that you think is going to win. Doesn't have to score the most fantasy points, but you think he's going to win.
It's still too easy for me because I like Homer Bailey a lot, and I know you hate him, but I like the matchup. I love how he looked last game with 11 strikeouts, and I just like him again as a sneaky guy at that price. So lock me in.
All right, I'll lock you into that. I'm gonna go Fultonevich. I said I don't love him, but when we're looking at this price range, he's probably my favorite in that price range.
Yeah, you got to go a little sneaky too when we take out those top 5 guys or whatever it is. So I like the call.
It's going to wrap it up. Tony, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
We got them talking on Twitter. There's a full-blown discussion about this. It was first and second in that game. I have no idea what they were doing.
That's going to make you lose your mind. You're not going to be able to sleep tonight.
I mean, can you tell me any reason why you would walk a guy with 1 out in first and second in extra innings?
Yeah, even with Beltre being hot and it being Beltre and his numbers of runners in scoring position, I still don't walk a guy there.
Unless it's Barry Bonds in like 2002, then I just can't imagine walking anybody.
You still had a good chance for a grounded double play there, so you're not going to be able to sleep tonight. I'm hoping that I'm actually able to sleep tonight. It's been fun trying to sleep the last 24 hours. So that's going to wrap it up here for the Morning Grind podcast. We'll be back on Thursday with Chalk himself, Dean, coming in here, and will be on the Morning Grind with us on Thursday. So that's going to wrap it up here. Thanks again, Tony, for joining us, and hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you again tomorrow.